guys, and welcome to the How to Publish Your Book podcast, where we are helping writers become authors. I'm Ashley Shannon, and I'm here with my co-host, Kerry McAvoy. And today we're going to be introducing ourselves and letting you get to know a bit about us here on our first episode. Kerry, why don't you start and tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Kerry McAvoy, and I'm single. I have 3 grown sons, and I love music, believe it or not, video game playing. I also am an avid reader, and I do swimming. And I'm a retired psychologist, so I'm all about healthy relationships and whatever excites and informs people. So how about you? So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Ashley Shannon, and I'm a single mom of 2 and a business owner. I'm passionate about reading, creating mental health awareness, and entrepreneurship. I really like that you put in that you're passionate about playing video games, because we got my son a Switch for Christmas, and it's not wrapped yet because I've been playing it at night. So I've been reliving my childhood and playing Pokemon on his Christmas present. So
That's funny. Yeah, I play a lot, and back when the kids were little, they would brag to people, "Mom is logged in 40 hours." Like, shh, don't say that. Don't say that. It's not cool in an adult world, especially for a woman, you know.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm hoping that stigma goes away someday, and Graham can tell his friends at school, my mom plays World of Warcraft.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, and I love shooter games. That's one of my favorites. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so in today's podcast, guys, we're basically going to give you an introduction to who we are a little. We told you a little bit about ourselves, but now we're going to talk about our writing career or path, and kind of how it's evolved to the point that it's at, and where we'd like to see it go in the future. So, Kerry, how long have you been writing?
Well, that's really interesting. Actually, when I was a kid, I had this fantasy because I loved to read. I'd read almost a book a day. And I wanted to be an author because I saw it as a way to be able to live forever, to become immortalized. I don't know what the word is, but anyway, so I wanted to do that. And but then when I got into high school and stuff and had to do papers, I found them super, super hard. So I thought, it's not going to happen. And then I got into college and grad school, and it just wasn't easy. So it was kind of this dream I put off. But one day in 2006, I woke up with an outline, which shocked me. I had an outline. And so I then buckled down and for the next year spent writing. So that's kind of how I got my start in it. I didn't do it the right way. But I ended up publishing 4 years later, 2 books, 2 short books. They're religious books. And then I published another one in 2014. Wrote a manuscript in 2016, didn't publish it, but I have a full manuscript. And I'm right now editing a second manuscript. So yeah, that's kind of been my journey. I've been in self-publishing since 2010 was my first official launch. But it's interesting because in 2006 and 7, I went to a conference, and it was just when the Kindle had come out. And they brought it to the conference. And this conference was in Michigan, where the biggest Christian publishers are. Alexander Van and Baker Bookhouse are there in Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. And so one of the editors brought in her Kindle and showed the whole audience and said, "This is going to change the world. This is going to change publishing." And sure enough, it did. So it was really wild to be in the very beginning of this whole, this whole kind of change, this renaissance that's happened with publishing.
That's crazy. You started talking about, you published your first book in 2006, that we said? Or wrote it in 2006?
I started writing in 2006. I published it in 2010. Ended up being 2 books. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I don't want to be that person, but I graduated high school in 2006. So
thank you for that. Yeah, but it's been, that a lot has changed, since 2006 or so, when, or 8 or whatever year that was that Kindle actually came out. I mean, we're talking 12 years? Mm-hmm. And look where we're at. And at the time, self-publishing was kind of a dirty word. You didn't want to be one of those. You really wanted to get an agent and be able to be published. But But it was interesting to see that kind of that cutting edge, what was happening. But I did it all wrong. And that's what I'd like to do different. I want to approach it in the correct way this time. So how about you? So tell me about your journey.
Well, like you, I was a reader. We moved a lot when I was a kid, so I read a lot, to kind of, I don't know, have something permanent. You know, like Harry Potter was in all my places, basically. Um, I I wanted to be a music teacher, actually. I had no interest in being a writer. I wrote a little bit in high school. English classes always came really easily to me. And I had great teachers. I've never been good at spelling. I'm still not great at grammar. And I'm Facebook friends with my two English teachers, my middle school and my high school one. And they always told me, if you want to, like, you have the creative mind to be a writer. Like, no, I'm gonna be a singer. I'm gonna be famous. Like, and then I went to college, and I didn't uh, I didn't get into the vocal program, because I waited 2 years to go to college after I graduated high school. And I was like, okay, I'll just do my gen eds and reapply. And I took some literature classes and some composition classes, and I really liked writing. I never went back to go apply to the music program, and I did 3 years of college before my money ran out. But it was also 3 years of college. It was really weird because I did 3 years of college with an advisor that I was really close to, who, as I was losing my financial aid, was kind of like, if you're gonna be a writer, you don't really need to be here. Like, this is not something that you need,
Mm-hmm.
by any means. And so I kind of felt like that gave me permission. And so that would have been in 2009. And I remember reading about Amanda Hawking making $1 million self-publishing in 2009. And yeah, and then I was like, okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. And I published my first book in um 2012. So
Wow. Wow.
it
So
took a
how
long time to write that first book.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, for me, it was 4 years. I mean, and I did it in stages where I just wrote for a year, didn't know what I was doing, just wrote. And then I started finding an editor, and then he was brutal. I mean, so I basically rewrote the whole thing, 60% of it, submitted it again. I mean, so yeah, it's quite a process. It's funny having you share what your experience was in college and high school. I actually I was an A student, but I think it was a terrible in a writer in the sense that I wasn't creative. It was whatever the teacher wanted is what I wrote. So if you
Mm-hmm.
said, I want 5 pages, it has to be on the fifth page, it needs to be about this. I gave her exactly what she wanted. And I usually had like 3 lines on the fifth page. That's it. So, for me to think about, well, what would actually be I just felt like I wasn't creative. I didn't like have imagination or something. And yet, as a kid, I would start a book, get about 50 pages in, put it down, and then create the world in my head and live in it. Because I grew up on a farm, so we'd have hours worth of work. So I would, like, in my head, live in the fantasy of the book while I did all this work. But so I didn't kind of put it together that was actually creativity. And it wasn't until, so really, actually, I think I've learned the most about myself and creativity since I started the memoir, which was in 2016. Then that kind of, because the first 3 books were educational. So it got me out of that kind of style of writing, which I actually don't enjoy now. I know that about myself. And I've really have learned to sort of expand my imagination. So it's an interesting journey how we get here. I mean, I'm kind of listening to you too. And I was a terrible writer. I was so bad, and I can't believe I'm going to confess this, that when I wrote my dissertation, I had a chair who was an avid supporter of women finishing their PhDs. And so she basically rewrote the damn thing. And I just copied her editing and then moved forward. And that's how I finished. So, yeah, I didn't think I was, yeah, it's been a journey getting here.
I feel like you hear that a lot, though. A lot of things I hear working with writers is that they always felt like they weren't a good writer, and then somebody along the way told them, there's no way you can do that. Like, which is usually a teacher, which is why I point out that, like, I had really good teachers because I couldn't spell Wednesday in high school, and 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 they were still like, you can do anything, So,
Yeah,
um,
I do think that it's part of becoming an author is getting out of your own way and believing in yourself and taking risks and realizing that rejection is just a learning experience. But I mean that's hard in the beginning. It's really hard to do because I don't know about you, Ashley, but doesn't writing feel so deeply personal?
oh yeah, even when I'm writing fiction, it feels personal, and I've had such an issue with sharing. Like I've been publishing work. Well, I wrote fan fiction in high school, so I've probably been publishing work since 2005 on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never all of my self-published books that were published before this year, I've taken them all down,
Mm-hmm.
just because I feel vulnerable and still not like I have it all together, and I'm not like super proud of it or whatever. And so it does it. I think it just, I don't know. It's like peeling away layers. I'm an onion and I'm peeling away layers, and
Yeah,
that gets weird and vulnerable and
it
scary for
does. I
sure.
mean, I've worked with a few writers, and I remember one who said that even the people around him didn't know he was writing. That's the
Mhm.
degree he was keeping it secret. And I related. I mean, I didn't keep it secret like that, but there, no matter what it is, like whether it's educational or whether it's fiction, it's like you're giving something of yourself out to the world, and you're like, please like it. I mean, it's so raw. I don't think most people who've not tried it really understand how you have to grow a pretty thick skin pretty fast in this business.
Yeah, it's true. I kind of feel like I've been fortunate because I haven't really gotten any bad reviews. I've gotten bad blog comments, but that's kind of just like, whatever, troll. But like, I feel like if I got like bad book reviews, um, I that would probably make me feel worse, I think, than just comments on a blog post. And so, yeah, it is. It's pouring your heart and sometimes years into something, and then somebody can, take 2 minutes out of their day and be like, 0 stars, you suck.
Well, my first editor was a very accomplished person, and he has a story that's actually pretty famous. It's used on media and stories. I mean, it's become almost iconic. His this one story of his. Anyway, so I hired him, and I mean, I knew I wasn't a very good writer. I knew that, and he sent back my manuscript in pieces, mailed it to me in pieces, not at once, in pieces, with critiques. So I got this like Chinese drip torture experience and it said, "This is terrible. This is a nightmare. You don't know." And then he began to list all the things I was doing wrong. And then the end, he sent me a letter included with the last piece of the manuscript and said, "Quote, you have no more right to write this story than any Tom, Dick, or Sally." I bawled for
God.
2 days. I was so hurt. And then I got mad. And then I rewrote it and sent it back to him. And I paid him again to edit it again. But you know what? That was a pivotal learning experience for me.
I can't believe you paid him again.
Well, you know what? I was so mad that I wanted to show him that A, I had it in me to do it again, and B, that I was going to prove him wrong.
Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. So, what made you want to make writing your career? Because you've done a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I fell in love with it. Well, let me back up. So I have a PhD in psychology, and I practiced for 20 years as I have a private practice psychologist, and I counseled patients, individuals, and teenagers, but it wasn't a good fit for me. I just knew from the moment I started that I had gotten into the wrong field. So I didn't know what the right fit was. I just knew it wasn't I just knew it wasn't it. But I had loans and I had kids and I had made a commitment to my husband I would earn a living, and so I just stuck it out for 20 years. But once I started writing, it was like I don't know. It was just this, it's almost magical. And then when I got into creative nonfiction, and then now I'm even doing this latest book is a memoir that's now turned into a novel based on a true story. It's just magical. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's I work harder than I've ever worked in my life, but I love it. I don't haven't loved anything more than I love doing this. So it's just,
Mhm.
and it's an incredible experience. I see you working just as hard. So tell me about why do you like doing it?
You were just talking about like you've never worked this hard, and I was like, out of all the jobs I've had, it's probably my favorite. And next on the list would be janitor and folding clothes at Hot Topic. So, which I was like, if I'm going down my list of jobs, but those are the two that I never called in sick for some weird reason. But I don't call in sick for this one either. Um, I used to tell people it's the only thing I'm good at, and that's why I do it. And I don't think that's true anymore. I think I'm good at a lot of things. But it's the only thing that kind of meets my needs. It's like I've had other jobs that I've really, really liked, but I never felt fulfilled in what I was doing. I was doing busy work and liked the people I worked with. Or like when I was a janitor, I was cleaning toilets, but I could listen to audiobooks all day. So I was basically reading all day, like and so it's the only thing that I find fulfilling career wise or to like work on. Um and yeah, so that kind of made the decision for me. I mean, when I left college, um, I really had no idea what I was doing. So my biggest goal was to, meet as many people who did know what they were doing to
Mm-hmm.
kind of learn. But kind of as I've grown, it's the only thing that makes my heart happy, I guess, besides being a mom. So, oh man, I left that out of my top three jobs.
Okay,
It's in
okay.
there
We'll move it
somewhere.
up. It will move it right up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think there's something about writing. I mean, I'm all about communicating, and after spending 20 years sitting with people in therapy, listening to them share from their heart, there's it's there's something about the written word that's more profound. It's like, I mean, you spend a lot of time to figure out exactly how you're going to craft a phrase or a paragraph or even a page. And you know what it is, what you wanted to say, and what it meant to you when you were trying to communicate whatever it is the message is. And then it does something in the reader, and it may be something completely different, but there's something about that process that's magical. And I don't, it's to me more satisfying to communicate via writing than for me to communicate talking to someone. I just find
Mm-hmm.
it just so incredibly powerful. And I'm addicted to that. I think that that's, whenever I'm upset, I don't write about things that I have to write about typically. I don't want to do that. And in my life at this stage, I don't have to do that. I know that there are a lot of people who do, so I'm kind of grateful that I don't. But I write about things that mean something to me, something that
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling a lot of strong emotions about, or I'm upset, or I'm excited about. So for me, it's a way to share something important to me with the rest of the world in a way so that we can enter into it together. It's really incredible. Do you find that it feels that way for you as well, Ashley?
Yeah, it's funny because you said you feel better or you like communicating through writing more than speaking. And there are times when I feel like I can't. I mean, I cannot have conversations, whether it's the social anxiety or whatever, or maybe I just don't want to. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's always easier to write it down. I can edit it, I can get my thoughts out. Um, I'm not getting yelled at in the midst of that, like whatever it is, it's always been easier for me. Um, and it's just kind of my preferred method to do just about anything. I mean, even talking about like video games and stuff, like a lot of the video games I play are story based. I don't really play shooter games. I play like long interactive story fantasy games. So like it's just kind of, yeah, it's everything about my life just kind of revolves around it.
Yeah, I hear that.
So
It's kind of
I
a
like that.
revolves around story for you, you know? That's really cool. I agree. I have the same thing. If I'm really upset and it's a bad moment in a relationship, I'll actually go write a letter.
That's I always do it every time.
They're like, "Oh,
Every time.
there's another one of Carrie's long damn letters again."
Oh, I'm the worst. And I'm like the queen of like uh trying to have a conversation through Facebook messaging, and I use my laptop and there's like no limit. And so they they had to scroll for like 10 minutes on their phone reading this Facebook message because it's like 3,000 words.
That's funny.
I'm the worst about it.
Oh
But it's
man.
true. I think we've both been very fortunate, you and I both, that we have not had to chase like the freelance train. I never did freelance writing. I never wrote copy. I've basically never written anything I didn't feel passionate about. I've helped clients with courses and newsletters and stuff like that. Um, when I was a VA, but I was always I would never worked for a person that I wasn't passionate about their business.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's I'm very fortunate that I've only ever really had to write whatever I wanted,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and it's true to still to this day. Like I'm not making a full-time income from my books, but I blog full time and I still write about whatever I want.
Right.
So, you
Right.
know,
Yeah, I mean, I had to do it plenty and enough going through grad school, and then certainly for work, doing reports and what. But no, I don't have any desire. I know that, and even the first three books, I did more. I can't say I love the experience. I learned a lot, but now that I'm in creative, either nonfiction or fiction, it's just an incredible experience, and I don't really want to go back. And I write personal essays as well. So I do kind of do short and long versions of writing, but I don't want to. I know there are a lot of people who have to do that, and there's some people who really love doing that, but it doesn't meet my needs. So that kind of for me makes me, what are your goals? So where would you like to be in 5 years?
and I hate these questions.
Well, it kind of fits into your writing goals, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in regards to, are you just talking about just my writing,
Oh, it
or are
doesn't
you talking
matter.
about like my whole life in general?
It could be either. I don't care.
Okay. Well, for our listeners, this is going to be all information Kerry knows about me because she's basically my best friend. But I have a son who has autism, who is for the most part nonverbal, and who I homeschool. And pandemics bring something to your mind like, what if something happened to me? So within the next 5 years, I want to own a home, or I want to have purchased a home and be paying on a home that I would then be able to leave to my son so that he would always have a home. And that means for me with writing, I mean, that means um, probably increasing my income by about 50%. And I mean, it just means writing more. So I am currently employed and I teach writers classes. But I'm not gonna be doing that as of March. So I'm going to be focusing on writing novels, and blogging and just trying to build my income. I'm not one of those writers who's afraid to say that I write for the money.
I think there's
Even though
nothing wrong with that. Exactly. I
the
think that
money's not always good, but I mean, well, I feel like writers are scared to say that. They're scared to say that, they want to make money, or we should all be in it for the art or
right.
whatever. But I mean, people got to eat,
Exactly. Exactly. It's a
so
living. It's not just art. I mean, to me, it's the best of both worlds. We get paid to do something we love that's artistic. How awesome is
yeah.
that? And I don't think it corrupts anything to make money off of something that we enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those weird stigmas in the writing community. In the same way that self-publishing was a dirty word for so long. And
Mhm.
it's been like a decade and it's like just now not like starting to not be a dirty word. Um, you know, and now writers are coming out and saying, like I made 6 figures last year, I made 7 figures last year. And so it's becoming a little bit more, I don't know, accepted. I think,
Right.
to talk about being in it for the money.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a great goal. That makes sense to me. And I think that that's the other thing that makes you and I. It's I know it connected me to you right away, and I could really resonate with you. Is that life hasn't necessarily been easy for either one of us, and we tend to use our pain to propel us, but also to set goals for ourselves. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really cool that you want to leave your kids something, safety and security and a legacy. I think that's really, really wonderful.
Ooh, I like that. A legacy. I was just like, you will have a house. You're like, it's a legacy.
It
I like
is
that.
though, it is. And so you will live forever. I mean, your name, whether or not, either if even if someone no one reads it, it still exists, for forever. That you left something, a mark on the world. That's cool.
That is very true. So maybe, my goal in high school was to be famous for singing, but maybe I'll just be famous for still selling books after I'm long dead, which is kind of the dream. It shouldn't be, but it is still kind of the dream.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So
Well,
oh, go ahead.
no, in fact, I was just thinking about you and I started reading or writing at the same time on Medium. We both
Mm-hmm.
started late October, early November of 2019. And you made a splash super fast. And I remember hearing about you and thinking you were so super cool. And I wanted to know who you were. I had sort of like fan, like, woo, don't know if I can touch, and then it happened for me as well, but it was more of a rapid climb. Yours is like boom, and mine was sort of this really rapid incline. And you were instrumental in helping me get there. And that was also the really cool part too, how our paths crossed like that. So
Oh, you're gonna make me blush.
yeah. Yeah. You were gonna ask me my goals. My goal, I'm near the end of work life, retirement could be around the corner in a way. I am semi-retired already, although I work harder than I've ever worked in my life. But um, I would like I am in it for the money as well. I mean, I'll be just as blunt. I I would like to retire comfortably, and I don't have to worry about it again. And do whatever I'd like to do. I'd like to travel, luxuriously. I just would like things a little easier. So that's my goal as well. And I would also like to leave a name, to say that I did this and this is who I am and that people remember me. Make my kids proud. In fact, I told my son a year ago that I had a goal of making X amount of money per month on Medium, and he just laughed at me. And then I did it 6 months. Within 5 to 6 months, I hit that goal, and he doesn't now say anything. Whenever I say what my new goals are, he just keeps his mouth shut because he learns, what, mom makes it happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's something I really want. Like, I do want to make my kids proud of me. Like I'm one of four daughters, four sisters. And I'm the oldest, and two of us didn't go to college, and two of us did, and or I went to college, but we didn't, graduate. And I just kind of want to show my kids that there isn't like one specific path. If one of my kids wanted to go to trade school, or which is what my sister did. My sister's an electrician. She's a badass.
Yeah.
Like, she's a 22-year-old badass, and I'm like, I can't do math. Like, she's like an electrician. So I just kind of want to show my kids that it's okay to do your own thing. I've been doing my own thing for probably close to a decade now, in some way or another. And I want that to be okay,
Right.
you know? So
Right.
that's
Exactly.
very cool. So, what would you say is your biggest triumph so far in your writing career?
It's been this past year to start. I mean, I blogged before. I blogged from 2009 to 2013. I put out one article a week for 4 years consistently. And these still are out there. It's all on psychological stuff. I wrote about personality disorders and the such. But I didn't really get serious about it until this last year. And it was because the memoir, I knew I was starting to write a memoir, and I knew that in order to market something, you also have to have an audience. You can't wait until the book is done, because I did that before and I knew that was a mistake. Don't do it again. So that was when I started, at the same time that you were started blogging on Medium, I started blogging as well. And so I would say, breaking the thresholds that most writers don't seem to get over on Medium, to be able to successfully do that and do it as fast, and then to move into a new platform and break it again. That said for me that I and then to have the feedback. I'll tell you what the ultimate triumph was, and it happened just a month ago. One of my sons said to me, he said, I go to your profile periodically and read your stuff. I didn't know that. And then he said, and then I start I like holding my breath, like, okay, what's going to come next? Because I write deeply personal things. And then he said, yeah, and I figured here comes the criticism. And he said, don't ever let anybody ever change what you're doing. There's something special. And for me, that was like, I could have died right then. It was, I mean, wow, I don't know what to say to that. That to me is the highest compliment. So yeah, it's to achieve that. That to me is the biggest triumph, is to have something that resonates with people, and especially to those who are closest to me.
I like that. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
You got good kids.
Oh.
My own I mean, I think my triumph actually came this year as well. Um, I mean, for those of you listening who are not super familiar with my story, I mean, last, not this past summer, but the summer before, so the summer of 2019, I just had my second child and I was on welfare. I was really sick. I couldn't work. And so being able to come off of that as of like November, or well, it was December of last year, was huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I mean, not only was I, making an income, but I was making a full-time income from writing within like 30 days
Mm-hmm.
of being
Wow.
full-time again. And so it was, yeah, it was huge. I mean, granted, full-time income is different for some people, or for pretty much everybody has, what they can live on or whatever. Obviously mine is lower, but to walk away and make, 25, start making $2,500 consistently,
Right.
that was huge. That was huge. So um that's probably my biggest triumph so far, but there's still so much more to do, right? Like
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. And I think that, it's interesting because you started, you realize this is not what you wanted, and you wanted to get someplace better, and sort of this kind of this crisis of sorts happened for you, and then it took you someplace. And that was what happened for me too. I mean, a little more than a year and a half ago, my marriage was ending. It was a second marriage. It was disastrous, horrible, awful. I don't think it could be, frankly, a whole lot worse than what it was. And at the same time it was ending, my oldest son was diagnosed with leukemia and was on his deathbed. So it was when then I started writing. I moved internationally, had nothing. I came into the country with 2 suitcases. That's all I owned in 2019. So I had to literally make my life over alone with a kid who could have been dying. And I just thought, you know what? I'm not going down. I'm just not going down like this,
right.
And I think it's those kinds of places that we dig deep and find ourselves, and I think it either makes us or breaks us. And I just was determined to have it make me. And it sounds like you did the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about us. I think it's something we have in common because like I started writing on Medium. Let's see, went through a terrible breakup, moved out of our bus that we built. My boyfriend and I moved home with my mom at the age of 32. Like, like if that's not starting at the bottom, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, in fact, one of my first articles was about that marriage, and I think it was the title of the article was "True Confessions from a Sex Addict's Wife," and in short, it was like the week or two after I just started writing, and I made the top 10 sex stories of that week, and it got published on an article and pushed it, and it went, of course, it did very well. It was like shocking to me, that out of our pain, that something big happens. It was incredible.
Oh yeah, I totally like I know that feeling writing about being, an insecure girlfriend and why it ruined my relationship about 2 weeks after we had split up. And then that piece went on to make like $1,500 in its first month.
Oh,
Just because I'm not the only insecure girlfriend out there. You
exactly.
know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
there's so many people who struggle with that. And so that's why like I always say that writing is universal.
It is.
Whether you're writing, creative nonfiction or you're writing fiction, like somebody will find your story and connect to it. And that's kind of what makes writing really awesome to me.
Yeah. In fact, I think that
So,
that's one of the big things that people, it's what makes it super scary, but it also makes it very powerful is that it has to be authentic. And people know, they know when someone is just giving the line that they need to be said, or they're just status quo, and they know when someone's bleeding over a piece. And you and I both are the type that tend to, we're willing to like go really deep, cry the tears, and bleed on a story that we're writing or a book that we're working on.
yeah, we bleed. Like,
We do. We
like
do. And the most hard
sounds
part was
terrible,
is
but
when
it's
you
true.
do it and no one sees, that's the ones that doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, we could spend a lot of time on what makes a piece viral and what makes a piece not. But so anyway,
And we may when we get into marketing and stuff like that, but I mean, it's
yeah.
true. Like, and it's always the ones that I feel like I'm writing from, my emotions or whatever, my mindset, and I'm not really paying attention to what I'm writing, and I'm just writing it because I have to process this and get it out.
Right.
And that's like the one thing that everybody reads. And I'm like, no, that's garbage. Read this one over
It's right.
here.
And you spent maybe what, 30, 40, 50 minutes on it, where another one you
Yeah,
spent several hours and you rewrote and rewrote. And yeah, I totally get that. Totally.
garbage. Don't read that.
Yeah, that happens to me too. Like, no, that's not the one. I just threw that one out there. Yeah, anyway.
So, what is your biggest struggle when it comes to writing right now?
It's a struggle I've had most of my life. I will probably always battle it. And that is, I am not a good self promoter. I am horrible
Mm-hmm.
at it. So marketing's super hard. I don't know how to brag. It's what it feels like. It feels like bragging to me. So when I say, please read this, or please notice this, or isn't this good, or buy this, I just feel, I just don't want to do it. It's very, very uncomfortable for me, which is probably why I wrote the way I did. I wrote in isolation for a year before I started even seeing what I was supposed to do next, is because I didn't want to take the risk of asking someone to look at it. It just is so uncomfortable to me. So that's what I'm working really hard at, is getting better at marketing, which is why that's why I've had to learn so much, is because I don't like it. So then I avoid it and then I don't learn about it. So I need to get better at that, all of it. So how about for you? What's your hardest part?
Um, Marketing sucks and it's just hard. I was about ready to tell you that I think it's a generational thing. Like I think um it's something that you're taught, not to brag on yourself. But now I'm thinking it's more of like a Midwest thing since we're both from the Midwest because I was taught the same thing. Like we don't taught you like you're not supposed to brag on yourself and that's what it feels like. But at this point like I've been through it with clients and I've sat down and told clients, you know, give them the pep talk of do you want to eat? Like, do you want to eat? Like, do you want to pay your bills? Like, then people have to buy your product. People can't buy your product if they don't know it exists. Like, you have to talk about it.
Right.
And so I kind of have to give myself that pep talk. But over the past year, just from promoting stuff on Medium, I feel like I've kind of gotten over that. But I still, now I have to get over it when it comes to my books. Like,
Right.
like I published a book like 3 months ago of personal essays and poems, and I still have yet to send it out to my newsletter list.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which is one of those things that it's just like, I should have done that months ago. Like, what, and
Yeah,
and I'm like, but I don't want to, it feels weird.
it
Like,
does.
I've sent them a weekly newsletter for I don't know how long, and they get links to all of my blog posts. But now I'm like, hey guys, there's this book.
Right.
I
Right.
think I think it's hard for that book too because it's not my I don't want to say it's not my forte, but it's not my niche. It's me taking things that over the past year I've written while working through my breakup, um, to just kind of let it go. And so putting all of that together in a book and, just kind of putting it out there because maybe some girl needs to read that or something. And but I'm a young adult author. So, it doesn't really fit my reader per se. So that might be why there's some hesitation. Um, but yeah, marketing and I'm gonna say time management because I have adult onset ADD, which tends to make me focus on one thing for like an abnormally long period of time. And that's sometimes productive, but most of the time it's not productive.
Hmm.
So like I'll spend like what should take me 45 minutes making a graphic in Canva will suddenly turn into me doing it for like 6 hours. And so for perfection, like I made a landing page last night and it took me like 4 hours and it should not have taken me 4 hours.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that's hard too because you have to wear so many different hats that it's hard to know the balance. How much time should you spend on social media? How much time should you spend on design? How much time should you be spending commenting on other people's work? And then there's the issue of writing and editing. I mean, there's so many things that we do that goes, especially when you do self-publishing, because it's basically DIY. So it's hard to know that balance and tricky because if you get out of balance, then you end up something suffers that shouldn't have suffered. Like one thing you said lately is, hey, you're overworking your titles. Yeah, I've probably gotten a little anal about it. And when I should just be spending the time instead of a half an hour on a title, I should be writing another essay. I kind of lose sight that I'm not going to, how much more money will I make on a title based upon versus getting something else done and out. So it's very easy to have that happen. I agree with you. Yeah, I think that I struggle with that too, just because if I'm not my problem is I overwork. I mean, I lately, especially in a pandemic, have been working 7 days a week, 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 hours a day sometimes. So, in fact, I've made a commitment this week. I'm actually going to not work on the book, and I'm going to keep my work hours less than 8 hours and take it off. It's a holiday week. I'm going to try to relax a little bit, do something fun, but it's very hard for me. I mean, I think I get my head down. You kind of run yourself out. I just sort of like get bullheaded and run forward and sort of ignore everything else. And I need to not do that.
yeah, sometimes it feels like I'm running in circles.
Mm,
But it's one of those things where I do the same thing. I I run myself ragged and then it takes like 3 days for me to mentally be able to get it back together. And that's like, and I tell my mom this all the time. So my mom's retired and she does odd jobs and she works in her yard and she likes to garden and she cleans houses and she does odd jobs. And I tell her all the time, wouldn't it be cool if you worked 4 hours in the yard every day and did it every day like you want to, instead of working for 12 hours one day and then have to take 4 days off because your body hates you.
right.
And then like you know what I mean? And I have to physically tell myself that because like if I if I work 8 hours and there's no such thing as for me there's no such thing as working a solid hour. I have to get up 4 or 5 times to deal with the kids within an hour,
Mm-hmm.
so we just say 8 hours. um after those 8 hours, sometimes after six, it's diminishing returns and it's just going to make the next day harder. So I really have to start being like, okay, at 10 p.m you're going to go watch Grey's Anatomy, and you're not going to do anything else but maybe fold clothes.
Right.
And then you're going to go to bed. You're not going to go back to your desk. Like you're then going to go back like to bed,
Right.
and you're going to stay there.
Right.
You know,
I've actually gotten up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. to use the restroom and wrote another blog piece.
I've done that so many times.
I know. Now, sometimes
So many times.
there's sometimes they're really good pieces, but then it's 6 a.m. in the morning. Got you because you just spent 3 hours doing that on a phone, and your wrist hurts because you shouldn't have been doing it on anyway. I think that's the other thing that is that if we're not careful and don't do this wisely, it does cost our bodies enormously. In fact, this last week, and it was a day I spent with you in some classes. I literally sat in a chair for 12 hours in my nightgown. I didn't have a single thing to eat or drink, and I didn't leave the chair. Literally, I didn't stand up for 12 hours because I hadn't.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking, what are you doing? This is not good for you. So yeah, I think that's the other thing is that, yeah, it's time management, but in a way that's good self-care.
Oh yeah. You have to take care of yourself. It's so funny because you're like, I've gotten up to go to the bathroom and written a post, at 3 o'clock in the morning. I've done that. And then I'll be like, okay, that's out of my mind now. I'm gonna go back to bed. And before I can get back to my bed, one of my kids wakes up. So then there is no more sleep.
Yep. Or when you're my age, you're already awake, you're going, well, might as well just keep going. So
yeah, and it's so funny that we know this about ourselves, and yet we continue. Like it's like insanity, right? Like we're continuing to do the same thing, and we're like, this time.
Exactly. I said to the doctor recently, I have insomnia. I said, I'm only like functioning on 4 to 5 hours a night sometimes. She said, are you on the computer till like 10 or 11 a night? Uh-huh. Do you think maybe that's a bit of a problem? Maybe.
I mean, she's not wrong. I can't tell you how many times I've been on my phone until like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and like
they were wondering why we can't fall asleep, why there's no melatonin in our bodies, like too much light, hon, too much light. So.
And I'm always like, it's work. Like when I was dating someone, like I can't like it's work. It's not, but it is constantly on a device. It feels like
exactly. So I think one of the things that you and I are saying, Ashley, is that we want to be the kind of writers/authors who get there, but get there in one piece and healthy. We're doing well when we get there,
right?
So yeah.
I know. I living in Eureka Springs with a bunch of other writers. I met tons of writers, even during a pandemic, oddly enough, and multiple people. It just seemed like they would they do everything within their power to get that first book done, and then they would have to take like a year off to not write. Like I don't ever want to feel like I need a vacation.
Yeah.
Like I need a vacation from my job. One, because I'm my own boss. I create my own job. Like, but I'm all about taking vacations, but I don't ever want to feel like it's too much. And I think that's kind of hard for both of us since we are our own bosses. It's hard to figure out where the line is sometimes.
Right.
Of what is too much.
So what do you think is your goal for this podcast? What would you like to see the listener get out of it?
Oh, well, that's simple. So when I started in self-publishing, there was the self-publishing podcast it was for newbies. And now it's gone and it's gone and turned into the Story Studio podcast. And the guys are still doing their own thing, but I feel like even though I started so long ago, I'm still a beginner. And I feel like there isn't that resource for beginners like me. Like I'm not a beginner writer by any means, but I still feel like a beginner self-publisher, even though I've helped tons of people self-publish their books.
Right.
Like I'm really good at helping other people do the thing. I just haven't really done the thing.
Right.
And so I want to be able to share my journey and basically have people, I don't know, do it with me at the same time. I want a community. And I want, if I make a mistake, I want other people to not make the same mistake, I guess. So, but mostly yeah, it's just kind of about like feeling, okay, they say if you go on Amazon and you're looking for a certain book and you can't find it, then you should write the book, right? And so when I go and look for a podcast to help me through this period of my career and there's nothing there, then I was like, well, I know what I'm doing now. Like.
Right, right. No, I think that's, it sort of relates to mine too. Mine is that it was first hard for me to begin to say that I'm a writer, that there's something I felt like, at what point do you get to say that? When you put something on the internet and somebody else reads it, when you put it on social media, at what point, what's the line? When you make your first dollar, when do you officially say I'm a writer? So that's really hard. But then it even gets harder. When do you get to say you're an author? I mean, is it when you sell your first book, or is it actually when you put something out that gets, is it any kind of material? What counts? So I would like to help people in the process, as I myself move from writer to author. I'd like to help others do the same. I'd like to do it with them, as a collective group. I think that was the coolest thing about our relationship, is I see us doing things together and helping each other back and forth. And I want to share that with a larger community. And I agree, there's a lot of advice about how to advertise, or what's happening in the publishing market, or how to be a better writer. But I'd like to be able to step into the gap of helping people with their identity, to help them make that shift. And it's a complicated shift, because as you and I already said, it's more than writing, it's more than publishing, it's more than social media marketing. It's all of it, all at the same time. And so I'd like to help people do this multifaceted thing together with us.
Yeah, and it's also a huge opportunity for me to talk to people who know more than me. You know what I mean? And that's like my favorite thing to do. Um, and so, it gives me like, if I don't know it but I want to know it, then I bet I can find somebody to come and explain it to me. And that's kind of cool to me. It's learning from people who've already been there, and it's the same thing. So, a year down the road, when somebody decides, okay, I'm going to start this journey, they'll be able to listen through these and learn from us.
Exactly. And you're better at that than I am. You're one of these people I admire, that you have no problem going out and talking to somebody. I always have this, like, I don't know, like intimidation thing going on. So here I find out from you that there's all these cool people living in the same town that I live in. And, I would never have the boldness to go say anything to any of them. So what I love is that I know that you will help me do that. And that I'm probably, there's areas that I'm doing, I'm more confident in, and I can help you do that. And so I see us doing the same with those that listen, is that we get to help those struggle with whatever their areas are, that we can do it together and we become stronger together.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, almost all my favorite writer people live in Austin. Like, and that includes you, but yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Writing used to be such a solitary, you know, existence. And I went to Austin, I went to a conference, and sometimes I'm like, dude, someday I want to do a conference where all the people that, I know can like meet each other and like all this stuff. But I went to a conference, and that's pretty much how I met all of my first writer friends. And I can remember one lady, her name's Julie, and we weren't even that close, but I was pregnant with Emmy, so it would have been a couple years ago, and I was struggling hard. I was sick, I couldn't write, I couldn't eat, I wasn't sleeping. And somebody that we only ever talked to at a conference, and then we were Facebook friends, and she sent me a message. She's like, honey, are you doing okay? Can I help you? Do you want, like, I'm a mom too, like I get it. And I've always said writers are some of the nicest people I know.
They really
And
are.
so that's kind of, I mean, that to me, that's the number one goal, is to give as much as I can and meet as many people as I can, and have a community,
Right. Exactly.
make some friends.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So why don't you tell this is going to be about, what we're going to do together? Can you kind of give them an outline of where we're going and what we're offering? And
Yeah. Well, so right now, as it stands, the How to Publish Your Book podcast is a podcast. But we're also going to be giving you guys weekly resources, printables, stories, whatever we feel like goes with the episode and is something that you need. And then we're going to have a Discord community for you guys to come and hang out. And in there, we're gonna do Q&As and stuff like that, and you'll get a lot more access and contact with us, as well as be able to start building friendships with each other. Eventually someday I want to write nonfiction books and stuff like that, but right now it's just about kind of finding our way and building our community. Oh, we're gonna have a monthly book club,
exactly.
which
Yeah.
I'm
Actually,
so
don't forget
excited
that.
about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So at the beginning of each month, we're going to announce a book, and we're going to read it. And then towards the end of the month, we're going to have a live discussion for all of you guys, and which we'll probably just stream on YouTube, and you guys can come and talk to us. And I'm really wanting to focus on promoting self-published authors, and I'm really also hoping that some of those authors will want to come on the podcast and talk about their books and talk with our people. So, so hopefully that will happen in the future. But the first book is called Bookcraft, and it's by Derek Murphy, and there'll be a link in the show notes so you guys can get it. It comes out December 22nd, and yeah, I'm really excited to read it. Derek's a friend, and I admire him, and he's such a good writer, and he travels like full time. They live in Oregon, but they travel constantly, and I really look up to him, so I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, you just introduced him to me too, and I read one of his books for the first time. It was awesome. I loved it. In fact, I already got the second book and started working on that as well. So I didn't know this is a new one that he's just put out that you're proposing. So that's awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's basically it's his book about writing craft.
Okay.
And he has I love his fiction stuff. He mostly writes YA, but he does write some different books about drafting and marketing and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just his book about writing craft, and I'm really excited because it's basically from first draft to final polish, and so I'm excited to see how his process works. I'm obsessed with other writers' processes, and always trying to like tweak my own.
Well, because there's
mine
right, there's no one way, right? I mean, I don't
right.
think there is. I think there's as many ways as there are us. Each will have our own way of doing it.
Yeah, that's what I believe in 100%. And I'm always telling people that, like, don't compare your journey to my journey. Don't compare your day to my day. Like, you know, people ask me all the time, how do you get so much writing done or whatever? Like, well, today my kids behaved. Tomorrow they won't,
Right.
like,
Right.
so, I'm always trying to tweak my process, but the main thing in my process is flexibility.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's exciting. So I can't wait.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm so excited. I pre-ordered it like a month ago.
Oh, awesome.
And I'd love I'd love to have him on the show to come and talk to you guys about not only the book, but like, I mean, he's doing some crazy stuff in self-publishing. And that's the one thing I'm excited about the most about the podcast, is talking to people I already know, people I don't know, pretty much anyone that will talk to me.
Right.
So.
And then the resources that we're going to be providing, you want to say something about what they are, what their intent is?
It's basically just a way to kind of work through the different topics we're going to cover. And it's almost, I mean, I guess it's almost like homework, but they're all like resources to kind of help figure out where you are as a writer and kind of help you make your plan. Um, and they will continue to help you grow, forever. It's not just going to be like, oh, here's your introduction or whatever, and here's your, you know, figure out your author platform or whatever, and then you're good to go. Like I think we should always be growing as authors,
Mhm.
and so the resources will always, be helping our audience grow as better writers.
I think it's great too, because one of the things I've noticed when I've worked with new writers is that they hear a concept and then they'll say, well, I don't know where to begin with that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really great. I get it, but I don't know what it looks like practically. And I think that's what you and I both want to do, is to give somebody something that's not just a concept, but also a how-to, a step-by-step way of being able to do that. So that's what these resources are, is to take what we're talking about and then give them a way to begin to start doing it and keep doing it. So I'm excited about that. I think that makes it really useful.
I am too. I'm really excited because it gives our podcast more of a hands-on approach. But nothing's overly complicated either. Like it's one thing to buy a book about writing craft or platforms or whatever and have to work your way through this whole book. Like we're talking about like 1 to 2 pages of a resource that will help you figure out something that will, impact your writing that day,
Right.
and moving forward. So
It's breaking it down into doable steps. Yeah, I think that's really a great thing. So I'm excited that we're doing that as well.
I am too. And guys, all the stuff that we're talking about, you're gonna find all the links in the show notes. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, they'll be down in the information. So pretty easy to find us. So in wrapping up this podcast, what are you currently working on, and what is your goal for this week, Kerry?
Well, my goal is to slow down and actually take a little bit time off, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe write a few blogs. And I'm sure I'll do something else in the matter of that. But it's to sort of quit being in overdrive. We talked about a lot of self-care today, so I'm going to do some self-care this week and kind of relax a little bit. How about for you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, we're recording this the week before Christmas. Obviously, it's not going to come out until January, but kind of the same thing. So I have been pushing myself to get a book out that I feel is maybe not ready. Um, and all these different things have happened, and I've just been like pushing and pushing, pushing, and I've already decided that like I'm done with that book for a week, and then I will come back to it. It's in the formatting stages, but like there's just been so much going on, and I still feel like it needs another read through.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just trying to push it out to push it out,
Mm-hmm.
and I really just don't want to do that. So for this week, I'm putting it down. I'm gonna do some admin stuff, but I'm limiting it to an hour a day. Um, I still have my classes to teach, but I love my classes. Those are simple. And then I want to go back to writing my 2 blog posts a day, because my 2 blog posts a day really only takes me about 3 hours, and I really enjoy it.
See, there's where you and I
Um,
are massively different. I take
yeah,
5 to 6 hours for one post. One
yeah,
post.
we are very different.
I know. Oh, to do two in 3 hours. That's amazing. But yeah, I hear you. I think that's really cool that you're doing that and that you're making those goals. And I really like the fact that you're stepping back from the book. I'm having to do the same. I'm also finishing a book, and I'm just finding that I'm in the editing stage and I'm exhausted. I mean, this has been more than a year-long push. I'm just very, very tired. So I think the way to find the energy is to recoup, to literally
Yeah.
step back. And so you're doing the same. And I think that's really, really great. Sometimes we lose sight of that. We push so hard. Sometimes we lose sight that we need to slow down and back up and change the deadlines a little bit.
Well, yeah, my deadline was in October, and I got really, 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 really sick. It was in October, and I pushed it to November. Was still sick. Here we are, the end of or the middle of December. Um, and I still feel like it's an incomplete book, but I was going to push it out because I felt like I missed these deadlines. But I'm still recovering. Like I'm still having days where I'm exhausted. Like it's not you know, I'm not 100%. So when you're pushing yourself to push out a product, when you don't feel like that you're at your best and you don't feel like the product's at its best, like
Right.
what's the point, you know?
Right.
And I have to do that.
And the other
So
thing is, it's arbitrary. A lot of these deadlines are self-imposed. We
yeah.
forget that. We forget that. I mean, it ends up for some reason, it like takes on a life of its own and becomes this magical thing that we have to hit. No, we don't. Who said so?
Yeah, I struggle balancing that out where I'm like, oh, it's my own deadline, it doesn't matter. And meeting my deadlines. I want that book out the first week of January, and I know that the last week of December I can read through it and give it a good polish and it'll be ready.
Right.
And I'm excited about that.
And that's a good point.
But
There's a balance in there. There's a balance in not like letting it go for forever, but also
mhm.
not killing yourself in order to do something and then end up later not happy with it because you pushed too fast.
Yeah, and I always beat myself up about those like arbitrary deadlines. And I think it's because of the blog post mentality. So when you submit a blog post to a publication on Medium and you're waiting for them to read it and you're waiting 2, 3, 4 days, you're thinking, dude, I'm missing out on money. Like if you're gonna publish it, publish it. If not, I'll publish it myself, whatever. That's not really true. Like you're just missing out on immediate earnings. If an article is gonna hit and you're gonna make a lot of money off of it, it doesn't really matter if it's published 3 or 4 days earlier
Mm-hmm.
or not, But it's that arbitrary of like always like watching my stats and making like how much money did I make today? Like,
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Right. Exactly. Right. No, I feel like you're talking to
so
me because I did just that exact same thing this week. But anyway.
no, I do that all the time, but I should say it more in my medium class because I feel like, people are, I don't want to submit to that publication. It takes them a week to look at something. Okay, hit submit and work all week. Like it'll be a nice surprise when they accept it. Like,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
Oh, well, guys, um, I'm super excited about this adventure. It's like an adventure to me. It's like a video game. We're going on a quest.
Exactly. Exactly. I am too. I am very, very excited. And I know that, it's fun to do this with you, and I can't wait to do it with all of us, with our listeners as well. So very excited.
Yeah, so if you guys want more information about the Discord group and the resources, all those things, don't forget to look at the show notes. This has been the How to Publish Your Book podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can listen to a new episode each week. All right, bye guys.
Bye-bye.